Do you know our members of parliament, they swear an oath of allegiance to the king. They don't swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. And why would they? They don't swear an oath of allegiance to you and I. They swear an oath of allegiance to the king.
King Charles says he can reduce his treatment for cancer in the new year, and it's because of an early diagnosis. The king spoke about his experience with cancer in a message that just aired on British TV earlier this hour.
This is a season when our thoughts turn to celebrations with our friends and families. In the midst of this festive period, I just wanted to ask you to join me today in finding a special place in your hearts and your minds and prayers for the hundreds of thousands of people across our United Kingdom who receive a cancer diagnosis each year, and for the millions more who love and care for them. I know from my own experience that a cancer diagnosis can feel overwhelming. Yet I also know that early detection is the key that can transform treatment journeys, giving invaluable time to medical teams and to their patients the precious gift of hope. These are gifts we can all help deliver. Throughout my own cancer journey, I've been profoundly moved by what I can only call the community of care that surrounds every cancer patient. The specialists, the nurses, researchers, and volunteers who work tirelessly to save and improve lives. But I have also learned something that troubles me deeply. At least 9 million people in our country are not up to date with the cancer screenings available to them. That is at least 9 million opportunities for early diagnosis being missed. The statistics speak with stark clarity. To take just one example, when bowel cancer is caught at the earliest stage, around 9 in 10 people survive for at least 5 years. When diagnosed late, that falls to just 1 in 10. Early diagnosis quite simply saves lives. Now, I've heard this message repeatedly during my visits to cancer centers across the country. I know, too, what a difference it has made in my own case, enabling me to continue leading a full and active life, even while undergoing treatment. Indeed, today I am able to share with you the good news that thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention, and adherence to doctors' orders, my own schedule of cancer treatment can be reduced in the new year. This milestone is both a personal blessing and a testimony to the remarkable advances that have been made in cancer care in recent years. Testimony that I hope may give encouragement to the 50% of us who will be diagnosed with the illness at some point in our lives. Yet, too often, I am told people avoid screening because they imagine it may be frightening, embarrassing, or uncomfortable. If and when they do finally take up their invitation, they are glad they took part. A few moments of minor inconvenience are a small price to pay for the reassurance that comes for most people when they are either told they don't need further tests or, for some, are given the chance to enable early detection with the life-saving intervention that can follow. This is why I'm so encouraged to learn about the new national screening checker that is available online. This simple tool allows you to check whether you are eligible for breast, bowel, or cervical cancer screening. It demystifies the process, answers your questions, and guides you towards taking that crucial step. As I have observed before, the darkest moments of illness can be illuminated by the greatest compassion. But compassion must be paired with action. This December, as we gather to reflect on the year past, I pray that we could each pledge, as part of our resolutions for the year ahead, to play our part in helping to catch cancer early. Your life, or the life of someone you love, may depend upon it. Therefore, this brings my most heartfelt thanks to the doctors, nurses, researchers, and charity workers involved in diagnosis and treatment programs, together with my particular good wishes to those for whom they care so selflessly.
And the CBC's Chris Brown joins me now live from our bureau in London. So, Chris, what stands out to you from the King's message?
Well, a very somber message for sure, Andrew, but also I would say a very hopeful one as well. You could see the King was speaking as though he had lived this experience. His words carried a lot of emotion behind them as well. This was something he recorded about 2 weeks ago for a program that's been running here this evening called Stand Up to Cancer. We're hearing lots of testimonials from various cancer survivors, and of course the King is also a cancer survivor, and that's what he was talking about today. And in fact, the news in his statement, if you will, I think is what people are going to be talking about, that in fact, while he has not beaten cancer, by the sounds of it, he's certainly not going to have the same rigorous treatment regimen because he's doing better.
Gang, what's up? Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney. We're going to investigate more. We're learning and sharing with you the things that I see and learn about Canadian federal politics. Like, share, subscribe. This is going to be very informative. We've got Sean Buckley here. He's a lawyer that knows a lot about the Canadian Constitution. We've been reading it here. It's a long document, but man, oh man, once you get into it, you find out very early that you have no rights. You only have privileges. King Charles owns everything. It's wild. Like, the British Parliament can change the rules in Canada just like that. We'll listen to Sean Buckley here explain much deeper and articulately what our Canadian Constitution is really protecting. It's not you, it's them. Let's take a look.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Like, you were talking about the Constitution, and for one, you kind of had me confused because I didn't even know Canada even has a Constitution. Do we even have a Constitution?
Well, I'll explain what we do have, and I think it'll shock people. And, this, maybe you should title this show, Forbidden Knowledge. And for those of you that, feel that you should only have knowledge the government wants you to have, then, turn the TV off. If I was, Corey and Ellen, well, I'll ask your audience and all of you out there, be honest. So how many of you have read the Canadian Constitution? And if we were all in a room together, I would see a few hands go up, like only a few. And then if I was to ask those few, I said, did you actually read the whole Constitution? I'm not talking about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is a very small part of our Constitution, because many people have read our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is just a small part of the Constitution Act of 1982. So, but I'm hard pressed to find a Canadian, including lawyers, who have actually read our entire Constitution. Now, let's put this into perspective, because the most important law that governs your life is our Constitution. That's the document that sets out what each level of government can do. It sorts out basically how the government has control over your life, how the government has control over your land, how the government has control over everything. No document has more power over you, is more important to you in your entire life, and yet none of us have read it. And yet most of us, pretty well everyone watching this show, will have gone through at least 12 years of government-funded education. Even if we went to private school, the curriculum would have to be approved of by the government. And yet none of us have read the most important document governing our lives. And you really have to ask the question, why is it that I have not read the Canadian Constitution. And when you read it, you know why the government doesn't want you to read it. Because if I was to ask everyone watching, are we in a democracy? Is Canada a country? Does Parliament have authority over us? Like we believe things that have no basis in reality. So the first thing is, Corey, you asked what's a constitution? Well, in theory, a constitution is, a document or, set of documents that basically are our founding and primary laws that say, who can do what, so the U.S. Constitution starts with, we the people and, and creates different branches of government. So they've set themselves up as a republic and they have separation of powers. So the courts are separate. The executive power, is separate. The president is their executive power. So Congress and Senate will pass laws. That's the legislative branches. But who enforces those laws? Who applies those laws? That's the executive power. Do you know who the executive is in Canada? It might surprise people. We think, well, it's the federal parliament. That's where the executive power is. But according to our Constitution, the main part of which is the British North America Act of 1867, the king is our executive. Okay, the king of England, King Charles is our executive. Now, King Charles, to kind of exercise his executive power, has a committee that our Constitution establishes to advise His Majesty's government in Canada, the Privy Council Office. Has anyone watching this even heard of the Privy Council Office? If you were to ask me who the most powerful person in Canada is, I wouldn't say the Prime Minister, and I wouldn't say the Governor General and Council. I would answer and say, I think personally, the most powerful person in Canada is the Clerk of the Privy Council Office, because it's the Privy Council Office that runs the Executive of Canada. And most of you haven't even heard of this office.
I don't even know who that is.
Now, the federal cabinet, the ministers, so the prime minister and the ministers, while they're sitting as cabinet ministers, are members of the Privy Council Office. But the Privy Council Office is made up of a whole bunch of people appointed by the king that are not elected representatives who just continue through. If Parliament passes a law, it's not law unless the Governor General signs it. Now, the Governor General is appointed by the king and is the king's representative. Do you know our members of Parliament, they swear an oath of allegiance to the king. They don't swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. And why would they? They don't swear an oath of allegiance to you and I. They swear an oath of allegiance to the king. Our judges swear an oath of allegiance to the king. So, and do you know even our Constitution itself is a collection of British statutes? Now let that sink in for a minute. So the Parliament in the United Kingdom, sitting in London, passes a law. So, the first part of our Constitution Act is called the British North America Act of 1867. It's a statute passed by the British Parliament. The second biggest part of our Constitution is the Constitution Act of 1982, which is a statute of the British Parliament. There's been a whole bunch of little amendments along the way. They're all statutes of the British Parliament or orders in council of the British Cabinet. So here we think we're a country, but our whole Constitution are British statutes that the United Kingdom Parliament can repeal, can amend. In fact, our Constitution doesn't allow us to do things that go against the UK Parliament. Most of us understand, let's say, provinces have certain powers, and the provinces grant cities and other smaller entities like townships and municipalities certain powers. And the provincial government decides what powers it's going to allocate. And the provincial government changes that from time to time. The provincial government can take them all back. That's how Canada is as a, so-called country. Basically, the United Kingdom Parliament has granted us certain rights and can take them away. So isn't that interesting? And we're not taught that. So everything governing us are just British statutes that the British Parliament can change at any time. Our king is the executive. Corey and Alan, who is the head of our armed forces? Who do our armed forces answer to? It's really clear in our Constitution. It names the person that runs our armed forces. Do you know who that is?
I know this one. Yeah, I know this one. King Charles.
King Charles.
Yeah.
So the federal government isn't head of the Canadian military. Our king is head of the Canadian military. And if we go to the king's court saying, wait a second, the military should be answering to those people we elected who then swear allegiance to the king, meaning our parliament. It shouldn't be the king directly. It should just be those we've elected to swear allegiance to the king, understanding that the king, can basically, annul their laws. Well, the court's going to side with the Constitution. The law is clear. The king is head of our armed forces. And, even our rights and freedoms that, and they aren't rights, because a right is so found in our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. A right is something that can't be taken away from you, right? So a right is something that can't be taken away from you. The three of us are adults. We have the right to go out after 10 p.m. if we want. Like that. Well, I guess that could be taken away from the government, and it has. But I'm thinking more of a parent-child role. When I had teenagers, let's say we had a 10 o'clock curfew. Well, it wasn't a right. If they got out of hand and I grounded them, they knew it was a privilege, right? It wasn't something inherent to them. And even though we have on paper, in theory, all these great rights, there's a limitation. The government, it's subject to the government say, no, I'm justified in this case in taking away your rights. So we don't have rights. We have privileges. And, it is true the courts can decide, the extent of those privileges.
It seemed like money laundering to me, but do you remember when Alan Reyes brought forth the scandal about the amount of money that was being spent on the Governor General's dry cleaning? We tried to break that story. Nobody touched it. CTV, CBC, Global, nobody touched it. We tried to break that story. So at first, this happened. Just watching it live, right here. This is all that happened. We were watching it live and caught us by surprise. Here it is. Wound up. Today he seems to be
Mr. Speaker,
pretty easy
after
going.
the Governor General's lavish
an
spending
independent.
on international travel, we've learned her office spent over $117,000 on dry cleaning since 2018, an average of $1,800 per month.
Did
For
you hear what he
fun,
just
I
said?
did some calculations based on the going rate for these services.
$1,800
At
a
the
month
rates she's been spending
since 2018
that's
on
an average
dry cleaning.
of 3 outfits a day, 365
That's gonna be
days
an
a
issue.
year. Why doesn't the government cut her $33 million budget? What are they
$33 million?
waiting for?
What?
Because she's clearly incapable of managing taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly.
That's embarrassing. That's going to be a thing. That's interesting. Good. Yeah, we're getting late on time.
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, the Governor General
What is she going to
has
say to
done
that?
important work for Canada.
$33 million worth of
Obviously,
important
we
work?
expect every dollar she spends to be done in a rigorous and conscientious way. Thank
Oh,
you.
that was quick.
Well,
not
this
even-
brings to the end of question period.
What?
I understand there's going to be a number of...
But then that story just went away. Nobody followed it up. Whatever. It's weird that nobody would follow up a scandal like that. We put out this piece trying to draw some attention. And we also criticized Alan Reyes for not following up his own story. But we've got more on that to come after this.
Mr. Speaker, every time
This
we
is
ask
Alan
questions
Reyes.
about
He
the
dropped
Governor
a scandal
General's
bomb 2
indecent
weeks ago. It was
spending,
wild.
the government gets a little offended. They pay lip service, but nothing is done to change the culture of this institution. The Governor General spends thousands on meals, alcoholic beverages, luxury
This is
hotels,
it.
trips,
This is
cleaning
it.
services, just to name a few. Imagine on a single plane trip, She even spent nearly
going back at
$1,000 on slices of lime and lemon. You couldn't make this up. So I repeat my question to the government. Does the government intend to cut its $33 million budget because clearly it doesn't seem to be able to manage taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly?
Pretty great.
The Honourable Minister.
That's an interesting
The Governor
story.
General does important work for Canada here and throughout the world. And of course, we expect all public office holders to spend every dollar with respect, with rigour, and in a conscientious way, respecting all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last time he shut down the House with his
Malheureusement,
last
ça nous mène à la fin du...
Unfortunately,
It happened again.
concludes and brings us to the end of our question period.
This is so wild, guys. That's two times in a row
That we have
that
a few
Alan
points of order.
Reyes dropped the bomb,
The member for Regina Capel has the floor.
and they shut it down right afterwards. Like, it's just really funny. I'm gonna have to do some investigating. We've got some more things to do.
On this National Day for